Good morning, everyone. Try that again. Wake up a little bit. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
All right. It's a little better. I'm not going to try and wake Secretary General. But Secretary General, good morning to you. Thank you for your kind invitation to be here today. To Prime Minister Anna, thank you for your kind words. It was a pleasure to be sharing the stage with you. I was saying that I was very impressed with some of the things of which she was mentioning. Prime Minister and also State Secretary Janet Stafford. It's a pleasure to see you here as well today. What I would say is that for the last 14 months, I've had the privilege of serving as the Premier of Bermuda, a very small country in the middle of the Atlantic with a population so small that we could all fit into the Stade de France, and then you would still have 15,000 empty seats. We are that small. However, our accomplishments, and dare I say our ambitions, belie our comparatively small population. We were discovered by chance. It just happened to be a hurricane at the right time, somewhere around the Bermuda Triangle in 1609. But we have innovated with deliberation. We are known as the risk capital of the world, with billions of dollars in reinsurance claims being resolved from our pink sand shores. And as the world's leading catastrophe market and one of the largest global insurance markets, we have paid out over $280 billion in claims to European Union and U.S. policy holders and cedents over the past 20 years. And yes, that was 280 with a billion. Just want to make sure. We compete globally against sophisticated markets such as London, established in the 17th century, and yet a mere 70 years later, after Bermuda's insurance industry was birthed, we are just as important as when it comes to global risk management. Now, with the emergence of distributed ledger technology and digital assets, Bermuda is once again demonstrating its ability to be a center of innovation, to solve global challenges. Despite our size, which many will argue is a strength and not a weakness, we have earned a sterling reputation while using innovation as a key natural resource in building our economy. We like to say that Bermuda has paved the way, and as the first country anywhere with comprehensive ICO and digital asset business legislation, Bermuda aims to be a model for the world. We have been focused on getting it right, and that is why our approach included collaboration with leaders in the world of distributed ledger technology and leaning on our own regulatory expertise established over the years and local and international experts in compliance. Over the past 9 months, we have delivered the first phase, which includes a robust compliance environment with bespoke legislation for ICOs, digital asset service providers, and the banking of digital assets in Bermuda. Our legislation is designed to provide clarity, certainty, and consistency with protections for investors, consumers, and service providers. However, our framework extends beyond policy and incentives to include both civil and criminal disincentives for bad actors. As I said at the Consensus Conference in New York in May, and I will quote what I said then, if you do not follow our rules, our prison does have beautiful water views, but it is still a prison. What does our legislation look like? After months of laying the groundwork this past May, legislation governing initial coin offerings was enacted in Bermuda via amendments to our Companies Act. Persons or companies seeking to conduct an ICO in Bermuda must first register a traditional Bermuda company or a limited liability company, such that the entity will be governed by existing laws in Bermuda for corporate structures. This means that beneficial owners of entities seeking to launch their ICOs in Bermuda will be vetted by our financial services regulator, the Bermuda Monetary Authority, and must meet Bermuda's stringent standards relating to knowing your client in accordance with Financial Action Task Force recommendations on anti-money laundering and combating terrorist financing. The legislation also sets forth minimum requirements that will be applicable to all ICOs, regardless of the rights, functionality, or features of the digital asset that is being offered. The Digital Asset Business Act is expected to serve as a global model of best practices for regulation for digital asset service providers. This act is structured to be generally consistent with Bermuda's regulatory approach for other highly regulated business activities. And it includes a tiered licensing structure, AML, counter-terrorist financing and prudential requirements, client asset protections, auditing requirements, enforcement measures, and access powers enabling the BMA to block transactions. As with the ICO legislation, persons seeking a license under the Digital Asset Business Act will be required to first establish a traditional Bermuda company with the required vetting of the beneficial owners. The Act also requires that companies that are doing digital asset businesses from Bermuda have a physical presence in Bermuda, including a senior representative that will be responsible for reporting specified information to our financial services regulator, the Bermuda Monetary Authority. Companies governed under the Act will also be subject to a number of requirements intended to mitigate risks related to financial crimes, consumer fraud, market manipulation, and unethical business practices. As many of you will know, one of the major challenges with digital asset business today is the ability for those companies to have access to banking services. I will talk a little bit more about the unbanked later, in like 10 minutes of time, and the role that the OECD can play in fixing this problem. However, last month, Bermuda amended its banking laws to allow banks to set up in Bermuda to service companies that provide digital asset services in Bermuda. Applicants with a restricted banking license will be subject to the same robust compliance and scrutiny by a regulator as those applying for a traditional bank license. So some may ask, what is next for Bermuda? As we put in place a number of things, first the legislation for ICOs, then the legislation for digital asset businesses, putting in place the banking. The question is, what comes next? Legislatively, we are on track to introduce a DLT-based National Electronic Identification Program. That sounds familiar? This removes the need, this will be a single aggregation platform for customer due diligence for Bermuda. And it removes the need for multiple hard copies and wet signatures, which will allow for new efficiencies and business opportunities for government, citizens, and private enterprise. We plan to build on our experience in crafting and enacting quality regulation to ensure that Bermuda will be a jurisdiction of choice for digital assets. One of the things that I'm often quoted as saying is that there are many countries that have innovation hubs and accelerators. However, as I say, there's only one country where the entire island is an innovation hub, and that is Bermuda. You're welcome to visit at any time. Before I close, it wouldn't be a speech from me if I wasn't a little controversial, Mr. Secretary General. So here goes. As much as some digital assets have not earned themselves the best reputation, I believe that the power of the underlying technology must be harnessed for good. As advanced an economy as Bermuda is, we are affected by de-risking that is taking place in many countries, especially those countries in the Caribbean region. This de-risking is seeing many banked become unbanked. And just as an example, over the last few years, a local bank in Bermuda closed 40% of its merchant accounts to ensure that it kept its correspondent banking relationships. The OECD's mission is to, and I quote, promote policies that will improve the economic and social well-being of people around the world, end quote. A future that continues to see many of the banked become unbanked, and those that are unbanked with no possibility of becoming banked will not improve the economic and social well-being of the world's citizens. It is incumbent upon organizations like the OECD to not only do the work to combat financial crime, but to ensure that innovations like distributed ledger technology and blockchain can make that fight more effective while not causing the collateral damage to citizens, businesses, and countries. Though the OECD represents only 18% of the countries in the world, its reach is vast, and the citizens of the other 82% trade with OECD members. At a time when multilateralism is being challenged, it is my hope that the OECD can rise to this occasion and look to ensure that the future of distributed ledger technology is owned by no one, controlled by no one. However, it benefits everyone. Whether it be DLT-based banking, voting, healthcare, land titling, identity, or business registers, the world's future will be fueled by continued technological innovation of digital assets based on the trusted nature of distributed ledger technology. Bermuda is committed to building a model platform that will prepare the entire world, and Bermuda especially, for that future. And we look forward to working with the OECD to ensure that Bermuda can serve as an example for how other states can help their populations achieve the OECD's mission of improving the economic and social well-being of people around the world. Thank you very much for your attention.